Hey everyone, welcome to the All Things Gratitude podcast. I'm your host, Nick Dorsey. And before we get started, big shout out to our friends at Blaze Your Own Trail Consulting. They can help you out with any of your social media needs. If you're looking for mastermind classes, 30-day challenges, or just doing a 12-step program to help maximize your LinkedIn or social media profiles, check out my buddy, Jordan Mendoza over at Blaze Your Own Trail Consulting. Check out his podcast too and tell him I sent you. Hey guys, welcome to the show today. Hey, big thing going on. We know how the housing market is booming around the country. So in certain places and everything, and rentals are going up. The price of housing is going up. So this is a perfect guest to have on today. Hey, our next guest is an award-winning author and real estate consultant. He's based out of San Jose, California. Check out his book, Rental Secrets. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show, Justin Pogue. What's up, Justin? How's it going, man?
It's going great. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, hey, we're talking about in our green room, man, all this stuff going on right now in the world, craziness with COVID, renters in some places not being able to, don't have to pay their rents, how landlords are, taking that in, and, if they're getting any, help from the government or anything. So I know you're big on the rental side of things. What are you seeing in that, and how much are landlords really struggling with this? Because like we talked about, the politicians think they can just eat the money, and hey, they're everyday people like us too, man.
Yeah. One of the biggest misconceptions that most people have about landlords is that landlords are off on their yacht in the Caribbean, sipping umbrella drinks, watching the sunset, in the background. And that's not really the reality. Most of landlords are everyday people who have saved money from their jobs and invested it into property, whether they manage that property as a landlord themselves, or they're investing in real estate through like their pension plans or retirement funds or something like that. So those are the vast majority of landlords. And as we saw with this whole COVID situation, politicians were falling all over themselves to issue eviction moratoriums and create a situation where renters didn't have to pay to help people out. And yes, that does help out the renters. However, on the other side of that, as a landlord, I've still got expenses to pay. I've still got mortgages to pay. And you still expect me to pay my property taxes without any income from my properties. So they didn't really think through all of the ripple effects. And as a result, landlords are going to their lenders individually, one by one, and negotiating forbearance and those kinds of things to react to the decisions that the politicians have made.
Yeah. And it's too bad because like my daughter, she lives up in Washington, and she was slated to move out on a certain day, and this apartment was supposed to be available. And then, the landlord came to her and just said, hey, they don't have to move out by state law. They don't have to pay. They're just, I don't know how long. We can't call the county sheriff because they can't do nothing about it because they're protecting their law. Person stayed in there for like another 5 months. And it's unfair because she was doing it the right way. And I'm not saying people are doing this, but everywhere people take advantage of things, and people took advantage of it. The people who really needed it, hey man, that's what it was built for, were the people who really needed it. But there's too many people who take advantage of things. So that's unfortunate, and I think landlords got hit really hard with it and either had to sell properties or foreclose on them. And that just hurts their credit. And it's not fair to them.
Yeah, no, it isn't fair to them, but it also highlights one of the other factors that's important in the landlord tenant situation is the relationship that the landlord has with the tenant. Because it's all well and good, the legal side of it, but as we all know, going the legal route is always going to be your most expensive path. Whereas if the landlord and renter can actually sit down and have a meeting of the minds and discuss what their issue is and come to a solution, that's going to be the cheapest and best option for everyone involved.
Absolutely. So talking about your book, I mean, I see it behind you, man. So there it is. Hey, quick plug to Justin's book right behind him, everybody. Look at his background up. Hey, what made you, did you wake up one day and just say, hey man, I want to be an author? What was behind it? Was it like you want to help people? You just want to get info out there, or you just want to write a book? Because some people just want to write a book.
Well, so actually the short answer to your question is, as a real estate investor, I spend a lot of time in the bookstore in the real estate section. And one day I'm there and I saw something I didn't see before. I'm looking and I see books for owners and managers and investors and property managers and all of this. but I didn't see any books for renters. I'm like, you left somebody out here. And it's just the 43 million households that pay $500 billion in rent every year.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's how, I mean, that market is huge. And what struck me as really odd is you can find books and magazines for, how to buy a car, what's the best way to buy an appliance, what you should be looking for in a computer and all of that. But when it comes to renting, something you're going to spend a third or more of your income on, there wasn't a lot of information out there. So that's where Rental Secrets came. That's where the idea for Rental Secrets came from. And that's why I wrote the book from that perspective, from the perspective of the renter. And when you think about it, it's a really important topic, because like when you finish college, they give you this lovely piece of paper that's all nice and embossed with your name on it. And, here you go with God, find your next career path or whatever it is you're working on. But there are a lot of like practical life skills and concepts that did not come with that education. And this is one of those things, because the next thing you need after graduation is a place to live.
Yep.
And figuring out how to do that. What language are landlords speaking? What should I be looking for in an apartment? What kind of questions should I be asking? Who should I be directing those questions to? And how do I negotiate the rent amount that I'm paying? Because as you alluded to earlier, housing prices are going up and rent prices have been going up faster than incomes for 10, 15 years at this point. So like it's just a situation that people are kind of pushed into that they're not really prepared for.
Absolutely. Hey guys, if you check out Justin's profile, which is in the links below, he has a cool promo video for the book, and it tells you it gives you a teaser for the book and, how to negotiate, how to get free stuff out of your landlord too, possibly, and different ways to go towards that. So, hey, great video, great book. Check it out, because I think it will help a lot of people. Because like you just mentioned, I live here in Arizona, man. It is cheaper to buy a house than it is to rent. But the problem is people can't buy a house because they got bad credit, because they made bad decisions in the past. Unfortunately, they maybe learned from them, but it's hurting them for a 7-year period, possibly, and it's just insane. We're talking about, I could almost get double the price for my mortgage if I rented my house out right now. And that, to me, that's insane, because how can you expect an 18, 19-year-old kid who's working their butt off at work to afford somewhere to live on their own? And like my daughter lives in California. She has like 4 or 5 roommates just to afford a bedroom, and I'm just like, God, that's insane. How do you do that? But that's what's great about your book, man. You want to help people, you want to get it out there, and that's awesome. They need people like that, because you're exactly correct. They have a how-to for everything.
Yeah.
But how to rent properly, and like you said, coming out of school, I don't mean this against college grads or high school grads. They don't prepare you for the real world like you should be, how to negotiate things, how to look for certain things, how to do credit card applications, how to do mortgages, all that stuff. It's almost setting you up for failure, because they want you to fall in the system to make money. So, So, I mean, that's great you're doing that, because it will help a lot of people if they sit down and read the book. And it's on Amazon, people too. So go check it out.
Yeah. And I want to highlight something here too. This book is not about bashing landlords, because that's the conversation that we've been having for decades between renters and landlords, and it's not doing anybody any good. So this book is about learning how landlords think, so you can actually negotiate effectively with them and speak to them in their language so they understand. So it's not, oh, I'm coming to you whining about my rent. It's, these are the problems that I know you have. These are the ways I can help you with those problems. And because I am solving problems, people who solve problems get paid.
Years past, Justin, we rented this house for a little bit. And the great thing about it is any home improvement I made, even if it's LED lights or if there's a hole in the wall and I patch it or everything, he's just like, take X amount of money off the rent every month. And it wasn't costing me that much. He just kind of pushed the amount up, because he knew how much it would cost if he brought a contractor in to do all the stuff and all that stuff. So exactly right there, it was like a negotiation we had with each other. I took took care. He had like 8 acres, you know, so I like mowed it all once because he just left half the field going. And man, he took like half my rent off or a little more than that because he knew how much it would cost if a landscaping company came in, you know. So it's out there, people. It really is. Landlords, if you have the skill set to fix things correctly, they will take money off your rent because they know how much it's going to cost for a licensed contractor to come in and do all those things. So I love the fact of the negotiation skills, Justin. I mean, that's one thing. Landlords are, majority of them, I'm not going to say all of them, but majority of them are business people. So they understand the art of negotiation, and they would be willing to negotiate to help you out if it's going to benefit them too.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a renter, any improvements like the LED lights you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
If you install those in a rental property, when you move out, the LED lights are likely going to stay.
Yeah.
So you've actually improved the property for the next person. And if I've saved money from my job and this is going to be part of my retirement, thank you for improving my retirement. I appreciate that. And I will compensate you along the way for helping me do that. Because you're helping me towards my goals as well.
Absolutely.
So it's really a symbiotic relationship between renters and landlords. They're two sides of the same coin. And this national screaming match that we're having is not really benefiting anybody at all.
No, it's not. So, Justin, with how everything's going right now, there's housing markets. I don't know if it's across the country, but I know big places like Seattle, California, Arizona, Texas is going through it. Florida's going through it. They're just going through huge just housing booming. It's just booming, you know, and we're having another one of those things where it's booming and not necessarily the wages are balancing out to the house booming, because down here in Arizona, big companies are moving in, tech companies, manufacturing companies. Yeah, they're getting good wages, but still, you know, you're looking at an average house in a decent area about 500,000, and you know, somebody's making 25, 30 bucks an hour. They can afford it, but they're living for their house. They're not living for life. So as you see that happening, do you see a balance somewhere where it's just, is it going to just take a dive like 2006, or do you think it's just going to plateau out and just level out and then let everything catch up to it?
Well, let's tease out a couple of things there. So the housing prices are going up, and as you mentioned, they're not matching incomes that people are receiving. If we look at the environment that we're in, there's a lot of money that has been created. It's floating around, stimulus checks and unemployment benefits, and a lot of that money hasn't even hit yet, because a lot of that money that was passed wasn't really for you directly. So that's feeding into this housing price increase. Also, what's feeding into this housing price increase is there was a large group of people who had rented apartments in downtown urban areas because they wanted the lifestyle. They wanted to walk to restaurants and shops and theater and all of that. Well, all of that stuff closed down. So now I'm stuck in this 900 square foot box with no backyard.
Yep.
So the amenity of having a backyard has now gone way up in value. So a lot of people are looking for that. And where do you get backyards? Single family houses. And that's where a lot of people are shifting their resources to. And that's also helping to drive up the value of those homes. And we want to also keep in mind that real estate is cyclical. It goes up and down, ebbs and flows. And so will there be a crash at some point where those prices will readjust? Yeah. When that flow of money slows down, there's going to be an adjustment. Is it going to go back to where it was previously? Now that part I'm not sure about. But it is going to slow down because it can't keep increasing at that pace forever, because nobody will be able to afford anything.
You know, speaking of single family housing with yards and everything, exactly correct. Last year when we bought our house, you know, we got a pool built, you know, in our backyard. We were going to do it anyways. It wasn't because of COVID, because we were locked down or anything. It was just part of moving to Arizona. But I was talking to the
It's
pool
not there.
company. Yeah, it gets just a little bit, you know.
Little
I mean,
bit.
we're in the 80s and 90s now, so you know, it's not too bad. But I was talking to the pool company. He goes, it's been insane. He goes, normally the city has 30 to 40 permits pulled a month. They have over 350 pulled.
Wow.
And now pools, you can before, you know, 3 months, you know, 2 to 3 months they'd be done from the time you start working at the pool company. They're done.
Okay.
Now people are sitting out a year.
Wow.
And they said because of the COVID, people are, you know, just blowing up their backyards and making them into resorts now and everything. So in the long run, Justin, this is going to have value for their home or for potential rental values because of what they're doing right now, you know. But yeah, it was just insane hearing that, because how much they went up just in a short, I mean, within months, it just everything just changed for them. So we got lucky because we got in right at the beginning of it, so we didn't get affected. You know, ours got done in 45 days, our backyard. But yeah, I have people who put in for permits maybe 3 weeks after me that their stuff just finished now, and it's been 11 months. Yeah. Wow. So that's just how long they've had to wait. So interesting stuff there. So hey, thanks to everyone who's chiming in and listening. Big shout out to my friend Kelly Robinson, who texted me, said Nick and Justin are killing it today. So I appreciate that. So this is a big topic,
Thanks,
you know, and this is a big topic right now, you know, and going on across the country, you know, because, you know, as many new homes are being built here in Arizona, just as many is being rented out, you know, with the influx of people coming in. So, you know, this is huge on how do we need to negotiate with that, even on the commercial side. There's a lot of commercial going on there. So do you dab in commercial too? Or are you mainly real, or do you do both? Do you do residential and commercial, or where's your primary focus for people?
So my background is on the residential side. Now, some of these topics and concepts do apply to the commercial side as well, but my background is primarily residential.
Yeah, I get it. We got a friend on here, Anne Marie. Thank you for a great topic. From New York. I'm sure stuff's kind of crazy out there with everything that's going on there. So with all the high rises and everything, so going on there. Yeah. So, hey, so with everything going on, do you, are you able to get out and do any engagements with anybody or anything? Or is everything all virtual? How's business going for you on this? Are you getting your word out there?
Yeah, I am getting the word out there. A lot of people are still doing the Zoom and virtual, virtual communication. But I am starting to be able to go out and meet people individually, one-on-one, and still have these conversations, and kind of insert myself into that space between renters and landlords and property management companies.
So Andrea says this is a huge topic in Europe, and absolutely is. I have a friend who lives in London, and like you said earlier, stuck in a 900 square foot flat, you know, and, you know, with all this being stuck like that, it's not just housing market or rentals suffering, it's mental health wellness too that is suffering from all this. And that's gonna hurt some landlords down the road too, because maybe not as many people are gonna get out because stability, they're just, you know, they're getting wrecked upstairs, you know, unfortunately, you know, and they have to work on that stuff before they can do other things. So yeah, it's very interesting subject going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is affecting people everywhere. And it's a good point about the book. I wrote it from the perspective of these are problems that landlords have because of the type of business that they're in. So none of the things I talk about are geographic specific. It's all about what types of problems are landlords having just because they are landlords, and how can renters help with those problems. And you know, it's interesting when the whole like COVID thing happened, and I'm looking at the situation, they're like, okay, well, you're going to be quarantined in your house. It's like, you basically told the country they're going to be in solitary confinement. That's what you do to prisoners, and not just any prisoners, the ones that don't behave. Like, that's what you're doing to the worst of the worst, but you just applied that to everyone across the country. And yeah, everybody's mental health took a dive that day.
You know, and it was hard because I'm a very personal person. I need to be out there. I need to be around. And when I moved to Arizona, I moved for a job. And that particular job, I was in the office for 4 days, and they said, "Okay, you're working from home now." I'm like, "This is not what I signed up for." And I'm telling you what, that wrecked me for a while. I mean, just because I was sitting at home in front of a computer, and unfortunately, that job thought, "Oh, since you're at home in front of your computer, you can work more hours," which wasn't cool. They didn't directly say that, but you could tell it in the tone of the voice, and you can tell I don't work there anymore because I'm not talking nicely about it. But but it was really hard, Justin, because it was like that. It's like I'm confined to my den now.
Yeah.
My 120 square foot den. I'm like, this is not cool. And don't get me wrong, I would love to work from home if it's for the right reasons and everything, not because I'm told I have to and I got to lock down in front of this laptop for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and that was really hard on me. It took me a while to get through it, but I learned a lot of things out of it, and I could see, a lot of people are going through that, and landlords even got stuck in that, if you want to look at it that way, because there wasn't a lot of business coming or dealing with, hey, renters, they don't have to pay their, rents anymore. So what am I going to do to pay property tax? What am I going to do to pay flat utilities? What am I going to do for this to make sure I keep my property and doesn't destroy my credit? So what have people been doing who are stuck in that situation, who are maybe everyday people who, maybe they make just under 6 figures or 6 figures, have a rental property. That rental property was bringing in, let's say 15 to 20% of their income for their family. And I'm sure you've talked to those people. What are they doing to get through that, and make it through and not lose everything?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it kind of gets back to something we were talking about earlier, the relationship that the landlord has with that renter. Yes, there is an eviction moratorium. Yes, that means that the renter may not have to pay rent. However, if you just as the renter, if you just fully take advantage of that situation and just decide I could pay, but I'm not going to, you're creating damage to that relationship. So going forward, is that going to, as the landlord, is that going to be someone I'm going to cut slack in the future? Probably not. Is that going to be a renter that I want to keep in the future? Probably not. Because you're doing damage to the relationship, because you could have paid, but you just chose not to. Now, if you're in a situation where you were deemed non-essential and the money's just not coming in and unemployment just isn't covering it, that's a different kind of conversation. But the point is that there should be that conversation going on between renters and landlords. What can you pay based on the situation that you're in until we get through this, crisis COVID period, and then our relationship can move back closer to something that was normal previously. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there are now some funds that have been made available for landlords that will pay 80% of the rents that are owed. The caveat is you have to forgive the remaining 20%. But at least there's now something on the table for landlords, whereas at the beginning of this thing, there was nothing. Landlords were kind of this afterthought at the beginning. So there are some resources starting to become available for them now. And then they have a choice, do I take the 80% or do I wait for this whole thing to be over, moratoriums to be lifted, and then, move forward and try and collect all of it later on?
I think you said it really good earlier. There's a misconception that people think landlords are multimillionaires. And they're not all. Some of them do take all their life savings out because they're banking on selling that house 10 or 15 years from now for their retirement. People are taking risk on these. I know a guy who owns 3 or 4 houses, and it wasn't he paid full price. He got them all at auction. So he got a great deal on them, or he had to flip them. So, he got them for dirt cheap because they're wrecks and just got them to the point. And it's just an investment for future. It's not that he's a multimillionaire. Also, I have a buddy who, like you're talking about relationships with renters and everything. his renter lost his job, so he or she, couldn't tell you which one it was, to be honest with you, couldn't pay rent for 3 or 4 months. So right when that person got their job back, they made a deal where for the next 6 months, they'll just pay a little extra on them just to catch them up. And I mean, they're all in good spirit. And he even went down and even took some money off it, so they're not paying the full thing. But, they came to a compromise to make this work, because he was like, this person's a great renter. I don't want to lose them. I mean, and it's, I can't help that they lost their job, but I need to bring that money in too, because I need to pay that mortgage on it still. So where's the, common ground here? And they came to one, and you're exactly right. And I'm sure your book talks about that, on how we can come to that point with everybody. So
yeah, absolutely. And when you look at how property is appraised and valued, one of those appraisal methods is based on the income of the property, and that's the quality, and the quality of the tenant is a major factor in that. So let's say you have a fourplex building, and you have 3 great, fantastic tenants. Everybody gets along, all of that. And then you rent to one person who is antagonistic, plays their music loud at 3 a.m., the nightmare tenant. Well, guess what happens? The 3 good ones move out.
Yep.
And 3 worse ones will likely move in, and it drives down the value of your property over time. The other thing I'd say is that there's a whole, in terms of investing in property, there's a whole ecosystem going on. So you may have an individual who's saved money and bought properties at auction, or bought properties that were, just this side of being condemned, and brought them back to life, which, by the way, is a fantastically useful service for society in general, because we need more housing than we have now. And they are, and they're using their resources, monies that they've saved. But even if you have a large apartment complex, say 1,000 units, that has a corporation name on it, that doesn't mean a wealthy person owns that building. That corporation may have taken on mortgages, or may in fact be owned by people who are invested in their pension plans, may have bought into that corporation. Firefighters, teachers, police officers, truck drivers. Like there are pensions out there that are investing in properties to get returns for the retirements of these individual people. So there's a whole ecosystem going on around this investment, and it's not just the guy on the yacht, sipping Mai Tais. Now, there are some people like that in that position, but that is not the vast majority of who landlords are.
How do I get to that point, Justin? No.
One step at a time.
Absolutely. So, hey, with your book, obviously, we've talked about what you're doing right now and career and everything. Hey, just let everybody know. Just tell a little bit about Justin. Who's Justin? And just, anything outside of the rental world. What is Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. Justin? So part of my backstory is, in the year 2000, I went to graduate school. I was going to get my MBA, and I was going to come out as a management consultant. The guy with the cape gets dropped into the company and fixes all the problems, and then moves on to the next one. And then the dot-com bubble burst. And so I had actually chosen the worst time to shift careers I could possibly have chosen. And what that led to was, while I was looking for what I wanted to do next, my mother was actually looking at, well, how do I do investment? How do I do this investment thing? And she was looking at buying property for like back taxes. So what we did was we actually took a road trip from California to Florida, and we're going county by county, and we actually found 3 properties, and we actually flipped those to developers. And that's kind of how this whole thing got started. It got started out of what looked like an incredibly dismal situation.
Mhm.
And kind of just going to show that you can turn those things around. And just when you think things are darkest, there are plenty of things to be grateful for in those situations. So now I'm going to get back to your more specifics in your question, because you asked, a little bit of what are things about Justin that aren't related to real estate.
Yeah.
So one of the hobbies that I have is I do like to go out dancing, which I know the COVID thing has kind of put the kibosh on for right now, but I'm hoping to get back to that at some point in the near future. But yeah, so I mean, it's just for me, it's that outlet where I can experience that just kind of state of flow where it's me dancing, everything else kind of just melts away, and it's just me and the music that I'm interacting with at the time. And everybody needs to find that thing, whatever it is. For some people it's gardening, for some people it's painting, for other people it's dancing. It's just that state of just being in that specific moment. And it's therapeutic. And right now, that those therapeutic activities are ones that we really need coming out of this imposed solitary confinement situation.
Absolutely. That's good stuff, man. Because everybody in this world, besides what's going on right now, but just in general, needs that getaway. You mentioned music and dancing. Music's my big thing. I could just sink right into it, or I can go play golf, or I can go play softball with my guys. And it for those split moments, it just takes you out of the real world.
Yeah.
And it just relaxes you, and just realize this is what life's about. Enjoying life, taking those stresses away. Everybody needs it. People need to learn how to really take advantage of that, because it needs to be done. It really does. And we're humans. We need that break and release like that.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. We got a question. What kind of dancing? Because Erica's into dancing. So yeah.
Erica. Yeah. So it's generally like nightclub top 40, like so it's not the ballroom, when we're not doing the waltz. And something else is, it's not pre-choreographed. So I'm deciding which steps and moves I'm going to do in that moment. And I've had people ask me, like, are you a professional dancer? I was like, absolutely not, because I think turning dancing into a job would pull a lot of the joy out of it for me. So I stay away from that. Although not above accepting a tip every now and then. If somebody wants to tip me for dancing, I'm down with that.
Awesome. I have some friends who are former professional athletes, NFL players and everything. And they said, when you get to that level, it's still great, but the fun comes out of it because it turns to a business. So it's exactly what you're talking about. I think what the dancing is, you would still enjoy it, but then it's about business. It's not necessarily about fun. It's about, now it's a career. It's not a release. You know, it's the drag of, the 9 to 5, as people would say. So, no, that's awesome, man.
Focus.
No, I met with Erica and her husband down in Dallas. I had a business trip down there, and we went to this little town center, which was really cool. I totally forgot the name of it, but it was a really cool place. And they had music on, and her and her husband just started dancing around the town center and everything. So it was kind of cool. So I knew she was going to ask that once she popped in and said howdy to everybody. So I'm like, oh, she's going to ask the dance question. But right on. So, I mean, anything on the horizon for you, Justin? I mean, what's, I know this is hard right now, but do you have an outlook or a plan for the rest of the year on, or you just gotta kind of sit back and wait to see what California does with all the COVID stuff before you can start like book tours or going out? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, as far as the dancing, yes, I do have to wait and see how the COVID thing develops. But as far as rental secrets in my business, I'm not really waiting. What's going on is I'm looking at how can this information be used in other ways. So, for example, earlier in this year, I was contacted by someone who works with financial coaches and helps people kind of get certified as financial coaches. And I was talking with him, and I was saying, well, the number of people who are renting is going up. And if you're going to be somebody's financial coach and help them work through their budget and figure out what their financial planning should be, a conversation about how to handle rent is going to be a huge part of that, because that's going to be the biggest line item in that budget. So having a financial coach that understands how you can negotiate on rent, what are the steps and questions that you need to be asking, is a really good resource to have. So he and I are working on a kind of a training program for financial coaches, so they can add that concept to their practice and really better relate to the renters who are part of their client pool. So that's just an example of the way we can take this information that, yes, it applies to renters, but it's a way that we can take this information and use it and apply it in a different way to broaden the message and help it reach more people.
That's awesome. So financial coaches out there, please reach out to Justin. He is right. That is a big part of everything. And, every step of the way where you can save a little bit of money or negotiate something out properly on both sides, it's a win-win. So, hey, man, everybody hit up Justin, man. He has the answers for you, man. He can tackle those hard questions, man, get you all figured out. So, hey, Justin, we had in a 40-minute period of time, man, we covered a lot of stuff and a lot of important things too, because this is a big thing going on, especially with some of the struggles going on in America and all over the world. I'll even put that. I mean, do you dabble in anything outside of the U.S. and like in Canada or Europe or anything, or are you mainly just to the U.S. because it's complicated here?
Well, let's face it, it's complicated in many places.
Yeah.
So what I'm sharing in the book is based on my experience as being a property manager for 20 years in various places across the US. So a lot of the information that's in the book is applicable to other places. I don't necessarily, kind of shout that out because I don't have that international experience. But that being said, these topics are not geographic specific or specific to any kind of jurisdiction. They're just problems that landlords have because they are landlords, and this is the nature of the business that they're in.
Awesome. Hey, Justin, it's been great today, man. This is something we can go on for hours. Seriously.
Yeah.
Hours and hours and hours and hours. Love to have you back on the show, and we can tackle some more stuff maybe, in about 4 or 5 months when COVID starts slowing down, and places start opening. Let's get back on and talk about any trends we're seeing that are changing, or what has COVID like permanently changed, because we're assuming right now things are going to change, but we don't know till they actually do. Yeah. And it'd be awesome to see what those trends are and what's actually happening now. Is it going to affect the landlord? Is it going to affect the renter? Because it's going to affect somebody.
Yeah.
It's going to affect somebody. And we just don't know yet. It kind of looks like it might affect the landlords, but who knows? I mean, it all depends on how the economy goes too. I mean, there's some key factors there.
And another interesting topic might be, once these eviction moratoriums get lifted, like what strategies can people use to actually avoid eviction once those situations, once that gets lifted?
And is there going to be any new laws now put in? Are they going to change laws? Because if something like this happens again, what are the laws going to be? Because I don't think there was nothing in the rules I know of that covered, or laws that covered COVID, because nobody knew about it. So, so what's going to change from that is, the laws. Does the government jump in here, or do the landlords have to get forgiveness? How do the landlords get reimbursed? I think this is a big That's a big thing that might actually, somebody's going to bring it up in Congress. Somebody's going to do it, and it's going to be interesting to see how far that goes.
Yeah, because I mean, if you think about housing is, you know, not, I guess pun intended, foundational to how people show up in the world. Personal development, professional development, taking care of their families, and it's just, it helps people be who they are and who they need to show up as. And you know how much it costs, whether it's available, can I not be evicted? Like, it's so central to everything that we are and be and do in the world. So yeah, this topic is going to be with us for a very long time.
And what's going to be interesting now too is the remote working from home scenarios, because big cities like Seattle, San Francisco, New York, LA, now people are living in those cities because they have to be close to work because they're going there every day. Now, if you're telling people they can go live out in the suburbs, and for what they're paying for rent in San Francisco, they can buy a house out in the suburbs and only go in the office once every couple weeks and make that long drive, how is that going to change all this stuff? Because that's going to be a big effect in this too.
Oh, it's huge. There were people, because I'm in this California, San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah.
There were people commuting, I kid you not, 2 to 3 hours per day, driving in, driving out. Most of that time is spent in traffic, bumper to bumper, blah, blah, blah. We kind of know the deal there. But when you think about it, 3 hours in, 3 hours back, that's 6 hours a day of your life.
Yep. That's
spent on the road. Hopefully you're listening to podcasts and you're trying to, you use that time in some positive way. But if we can skip that, because that was one of the silver linings or gifts of COVID, is I got all my commute time back. So now how am I using that? Personally, I've been using all that to create content and think about where my business is going, and to really slow down and reflect on, what I wanted, where I was going, what my plan was, how I wanted to show up in the world, and what impact I wanted to have. But that's been the silver lining of this whole situation. Like, everything slowed down.
Yeah. It slowed down big. And I did this post back in January. I go, things I learned from COVID. One, I could slow down and get everything accomplished. Two, my wife and I can spend all day together without killing each other. So that was fantastic.
That's a big one.
That was a huge one. And actually brought it, and it actually brought us closer together, because, it was really cool. I mean, we had a great relationship, before this, but, it was just something like, because we used to always say work was our getaway, just because you just need a break. But we're like, this is good, and, just so those were, some big things for me, just like the biggest thing I think is, if there was a positive, the world slowed down and the world needed it, because the world was going out of control, just crazy fast, and it's still going to, don't get me wrong, but I learned I can just take it down a couple notches, still get things accomplished, still get my goals done, and still enjoy life.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to take a positive out of it, that's what I'm taking. But that's about it. So,
that is a win.
You got to find a positive and a negative. You really do. You really do. Yes. I mean, that's especially if you're getting stuck at home and like confined, solitary confinement, like you say, it's just, you have to find those positives, and it's hard. It is hard for some people, and I get it.
And think things will get better. Like I was talking about earlier, I graduated into like the .com bubble bursting, and like it was the worst time for what I had planned and all that. But that opened the door for something else. So just like now, people are graduating into COVID, and they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do next. How is this going to work? Whatever. You'll find your niche. Just you gotta keep looking for it, but you'll find your niche, and pay attention to doors that might be just kind of cracked open slightly, and peek in there and see if you're and see if there's something there for you. There was I want to share one story out of the book. So one of the strategies in the book is, and this is the strategy where you can actually get free rent. So those people who who can use that, listen up. Is to actually work for the landlord. So if there's a small apartment building, 20, 25 units, something like that, landlords in many cases look for renters who will live on site, who will help manage the property, be that first line of contact for the other renters for maintenance issues or questions or that kind of thing. Be there to show units when they're vacant. Generally keep the property up, as they say, maintain the curb appeal of the property, and fulfill roles like that. And in exchange, people get greatly reduced, or in some cases even free rent. And this is a part-time gig. So there was one individual who had a role like this, and it was about a 10-hour a week job. And having that job allowed him to try out other professions without the financial pressure of this job has to stick or I have to make this work. So he actually was able to try out 3 or 4 different professions. This one's not for me, or I kind of like this one, but I like the aspects of this other one over here better. And kind of going through that, he did this role for 4 years. And he finally ended up finding the profession that he was most interested in, but it allowed him the flexibility and the freedom to do that. So just shifting that mindset from the landlord is my enemy, and we certainly don't work for our enemies, to the landlord and renter are two sides of the same coin, allowed him that flexibility and that option.
So Justin, I thought the old saying is you keep your friends closer and your enemies closer. Are you supposed to keep the landlords closer? No, I love that scenario because we talked about it in the green room. The average rent across the country is about $1,200 a month. So if you could take $1,200 off a month as you're looking for those other jobs or trying to find that career, you can take a job for $12, $13 an hour and still survive because you got $1,200 of that taken out that you have to spend every month. Living for free. But you see what I'm saying? I mean, but you probably get utilities and everything. I get that, but it's that point is you don't have to worry about this huge chunk of money going away every month.
Right.
It's there for you.
Yeah. The reason why I say it's better than that is because when you pay rent, you're paying that with after-tax money.
Yep.
So that $1,200 a year, which basically come to 14 and a half grand a year. Yeah. When you gross that up, because you would pay taxes on that, so it's really like closer to 20.
Oh, nice.
So it's a really good side gig
for 10 hours a week. Yeah, that's a great side gig.
It's a great side
free
gig.
Living.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
these are some of the ways that people need to start shifting their thinking to really start taking advantage of these negotiation opportunities, because being a landlord is stressful. And we talked about the myth of the millionaire on the yacht with the Mai Tai and all of that. But the reality is, and I use these pictures in my presentation, is that most landlords feel like they're out in the ocean drowning and they have one hand above water. That's where most landlords feel like they are. And if you as a renter can throw them any kind of lifeline, any kind of help to relieve some of that stress, they're very willing to pay and compensate for that. And I mean, when you think about landlords, they're dealing with vacancy issues, maintenance issues, legal issues. Depending on what's going on with the property, there may be problems. There's marketing issues. There's all kinds of problems that landlords are dealing with. And any help that can be provided reduces that stress and is of value to them.
I mean, This is great stuff, Justin. We got to start wrapping up because I got to be able to put this on Instagram. So we got this out to you. Hey, guys, you heard some teasers from Justin's book, Rental Secrets. Hey, Justin, where can everybody find your books? So, because this is something that is a must read for people who are out in the renting world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a must read for renters. It's a must read for landlords, and anybody interested in investing in property as well. So the book is available at Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble. You can also get it at rentalsecrets.net. And I also have a free 10-step guide called Apartment Search Secrets that you can get at rentalsecrets.net as well.
Awesome. All those links, guys, are down in the comments. If you're on LinkedIn, check it out. His profile, both his websites will lead you to everything he just talked about. So, hey, guys. Hey, Justin, where else can everybody find you? What's the easiest ways to find you around this
Absolutely.
place?
You can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all those usual suspects. And I actually post a tip for renters and landlords every day on all of my social media as well.
Awesome. Thank you to everybody who listened today. I mean, we appreciate it. We got some good comments going on there. We had quite a bit of views going on live on all the sites that this is out to Twitter today. This is out to LinkedIn. This is out to, where else did I send it? YouTube. So we're getting quite a bit of views. Guys, check out Justin. Hey, guys, also, you can find me on LinkedIn. Up that way. Boop. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find all past podcasts on YouTube, all the video version of them. The audio version, go to Anchor. You can find all of us. We're approaching 50 episodes, so we're getting really excited for that, and we've got a ton of engagement. So, hey, Justin, once again, I want you to come back in about 4 or 5 months, 6 months, when COVID's really, world's getting back to where, and let's have this conversation again, see if it's changed at all, because I think it's going to change. So, everybody, please find Justin's stuff down below. Connect with him, guys. Keep up. He posts stuff all the time about secrets or trends or anything that's going on. So go check Justin out. Everybody, thank you so much. See you next Saturday, 8 a.m. Pacific time again for another fantastic show of the All Things Gratitude podcast. Hey, Justin, we appreciate you, man. Have a great day, great weekend. And hey, man, good luck with all the stuff going on with you, man.
All right. Thanks, Nick. You do the same.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.